All right, so a really quick post-editing detail I want to do before I get into the video. If you guys do have any comments, because I will be covering some not controversial topics, we'll be talking about expert systems as well as some other things in the interview. Please try and keep it positive. If you guys want to vent, that's fine. But if you guys are going to comment, I really would appreciate it if you guys would actually come up with a solution to some of the topics that I bring up in this video, because I don't want this just to be a toxic vent fest. I just want people to actually give feedback to not only myself, but also the developers in ways we can also make EVE Online a better place. So now we'll finally get into the video. What's up, guys? It's Eventon here. So I did change up the mic settings a little bit here, so hopefully I should be a bit louder, so you guys should be able to hear me a bit easier. But today we're going to be covering this interview that OzEve did very recently. I think it was just a day or two ago, with CCP Rattati, talking about specifically the economy of EVE, some of the plans they have here in the near future. CCP Rattati recently got promoted to the Director of Product, which means a lot of different things. I mean, they cover it more in the interview here. So if you guys actually want to check out the interview in its entirety, because it's about an hour and a half long, it's a pretty in-depth interview. I'll link down below OzEve's VOD on his Twitch channel, as well as the YouTube video he just uploaded, which I'm watching through it right now. I'll put that down in the description as well. And I really like OzEve. I think me and him have a lot of things in common. I think we share some similarities when it comes to some of the concerns we have about not only just EVE Online, but also just some concerns we have about the EVE community, like as a whole, and we would kind of like to see that change as well. So that's part of the reason I'm actually making this video. But I really liked Rattati in this interview. Obviously, EVE kind of put his feet to the fire a couple different times, and I think he handled himself well. But more importantly, you can really tell he genuinely cares about the game. He really wants people to enjoy the game. There's a lot of issues and concerns surrounding EVE Online, and he really wants to try and find some solutions and figure it out. And you know, you could tell he's asking us for help. And I think one of the biggest issues that I'm running into, I mean, I played a lot of different MMOs in my time. And after playing EVE, I think this month it's going to be 1 year in EVE Online. And sometimes I am actually surprised by the amount of toxicity and divisiveness, not only between players, but also just players and like the CCP devs and stuff like that. And it honestly blows my mind, because like, these developers are people too. Like, they want the game to work. Like, like I said, there's times you can just tell in his voice that he genuinely wants this stuff to work. And whether they're just running thin on just people and manpower or ideas or whatever it is. And I think people obviously want CCP to be more transparent with like some of their intentions and things they want to do. But that's just not going to happen, because, I mean, that's just the gaming industry in general. I think every gaming company would love to be very transparent with all their players. But I just don't think they trust their player base to be open-minded enough to actually take some of the feedback or some of the things that are happening like behind the scenes and be actually open-minded and accepting of it, because they're just going to get so much toxicity and criticism and so much stuff that isn't relevant, and just kind of just stirring that pot of divisiveness. And it's like they just can't trust us with it yet. And so during this interview, and even other times when I've seen it on forums and stuff, it's like the toxicity is just insane. And the more that we put these CCP developers like on blast and just not come up with any solutions and just say problem, this is terrible, I hate this ruined my fun, blah, blah, like the less likely they're going to be to do interviews like this. And the connection and the communication between the players and the developers are going to get less and less and less, because they just can't trust us in order to actually give constructive feedback, rather than just being toxic and negative and just cursing them out all of a sudden, especially when it comes to personal attacks. Like, it should never ever get to that point. So the whole point of this thing isn't to shit on CCP or the developers or the choices that they've made. I merely want to look at some of the decisions and some of the thought process they have about some of the concerns with EVE Online, and just kind of just give solutions, because that's what I love doing. I love helping out new bros. I love helping out. I come from a sales background, helping business owners like, hey, what's the problem? Let's come up with a solution together that we can help tackle this problem together. I have a ton of ideas for just EVE Online in general that I would love to present to you guys at some point. I think I did a lot of them in my stream yesterday, and a lot of you guys thought they were great. So that's kind of what I'm just doing here. And I really want to just take this interview as feedback and to really help you guys just be open-minded. And these developers have honestly sacrificed so much. Like, I can't even understand how much they've sacrificed when it comes to just like personal time, things they're trying to do. And honestly, like, I mean, for some of them, their jobs might be on the line. Like, who knows? I don't know. But there's so much pressure, and there's just so much, like, you can just feel it in the air sometimes during this interview. And he really wants these things to work out, and that's what I'm here for. Like, I really hope I can be an example to the EVE Online community, and just try and help bridge that gap of not being as toxic, come up with solutions, and what can we do that can make everyone happy, and kind of breathe more of a positive environment, I guess. So that's what I'm going to try and smile and kind of joke around a bit more in this type of video. So we'll go ahead and get into the interview right now. All right, and I actually did speed up the video to, I believe, like 1.25 speed, because that's just how I watch my YouTube videos. Sometimes it's even faster, but I don't want to make it too fast for you guys. And we're going to be covering like 15 to 20 minutes of this interview, so I want to make sure you guys see the whole thing and actually have some context instead of just taking bits and pieces of, you know, what CCP Rattati says or what Oziv said, and just kind of just not give you guys the full scope of the interaction. So we'll go ahead and get started.
Speaking of monetization, so we just learned about the expert systems, right? I don't know how much that touches on the work you do, but then again, the work you do touches on basically everything in Eve, right?
Because I'm intimately involved. Yep. Expert systems were coined from a very specific user problem, and there are ways to get around that for sure. I read the expert systems threads on both forums, and
he mentions user problems. I'm just kind of curious what they were. I think this is kind of at least for me, if I was interviewing, those are the kind of questions. I wouldn't interrupt them, but I would be kind of curious, like, what are the user problems you guys have seen? And this is just the sales part of me, where it's like, typically when something like that is said, that's kind of an opportunity to dig in and try and figure out what the root of the problem is, because I feel like that was an opportunity right there to help us as the community understand, like, all right, what's the actual underlying problem, and like that way we can give you a more catered and specified solution. So we'll go ahead and continue on. Sorry to interrupt.
I don't disagree with a lot of things. We could make the skill system much easier to understand, but there's something about navigating these, I would say, these obstacles in the very beginning that have been pointed out. If you're not going to refactor the skill system, these would be interesting ways to do it. We definitely don't want to sell skill points. So that was basically the foundation, the design crutch was, okay, how can we help them without selling skill points? Okay, we can grant them temporary skills. And that's kind of the idea we went with, and say, okay.
So his thing was they didn't want to just sell skill points, because that's literally no different than doing like alpha injectors, skill point injectors, things like that. Renting skills, I think the way they have it set up, and I will come up with some solutions. I'm not the type of person that just says problem, and like don't come up. I will come up with a solution, because I actually did look over a lot of the skills that they had, at least in the CC server. So I do have some solutions when it comes to what I think would be very helpful to new bros. And I totally understand, like CC, like they're in a pickle here, because without completely re-scrapping or like redoing the whole like skill point system, at least for like the beginning part, they have to find something that's in the middle, and they can't just do skill points because that already exists, and that would be seem kind of cash grabby. But we'll go ahead and continue on. And this is me just kind of people I think are missing this part of just empathizing, because you can just hear it like these are the issues that we're trying to overcome as CCP, and not make it so similar, or as you know, without flipping the entire game on its head for the most part.
Okay, how do we allow you to fly something now, taste something now, instead of waiting? And players could skill inject, new players won't be able to understand that, and that's also our fault. So how do we get this into like, okay, can we get something cool, smart, very kind of digestible at a low price point that says, hey, just, okay, in your first session, you don't have to wait for anything, you don't have to come back tomorrow. What if you can just fly a mining barge, or a small frigate with like a fitted frigate with like the bare necessities, and say, okay, go out and fight. And the idea here was that, how can we actually make a friend kind of take you out? So a friend says, okay, come join me, we're going to do this together. And instead of that friend saying, hey, let's see you in a week, get these skills started and then play, what if you can just like drop a low price point and then fly with me today? In the meanwhile, you're actually trading towards that at the same time. So you're also learning a bit about what makes...
You can tell Ozzy wants to say something here, but he did a good job. Honestly, he did a fantastic job in this interview of listening, and not not listening to speak, listening to actually like understand, and then actually also giving some feedback. But I think, I mean, the 1 million skill points, like the referral code, it's a really way to alleviate a lot of this. Like 1 million skill points can actually inject you into like cruisers and a lot of good ships and weapons and all that stuff. This is one of the issues that I think CCP could kind of fix, is like let new bros be able to retroactively apply referral codes rather than having to add a whole new, make a whole new account. There was one guy I literally just watched on stream on Twitch. He came back after 6 years. He couldn't find his old account, so he's like, I just want to start a new one anyway. I joined a stream and I told him, hey, like, I hate to bring this up. I'm only bringing it up because you're literally day one, but like, did you use a referral code? He's like, no, what's that? And I'm like, well, you have to start a whole new account. You can refer yourself, and you know, I feel like a lot of new bros when they start, they don't even realize referral code is a thing. So being able to have their friend, like he said right here, hey, you know, I'll see you in a week, where they could just say like, oh, you already started. Hey, that's fine. I'll give you my referral code. Maybe there's like a span of a month or a week of when you started a new account. You can retroactively add that referral code. So now you can just jump into that, you know, that ship right away. You know, if you have a friend that's there to kind of back you up and give you the ISK anyway, now the only issue is skill points. I think that's one of the things that I think that could help, is be able to retroactively add skill points to accounts that were recently created within a week or a month. I'm not sure, whatever timeline that is.
A fitting, like the concept of fitting even. So you're like, okay, here's a bundle that kind of lets you fly now, is also kind of a skill plan, and also gives you some kind of a small, I would say, beacon of light to look up things, to train, to buy, to go study in the market, because you're fairly
So, and this is what I mean, like you can just tell CCP Rattati, he uses the term beacon of light, like there's hope at the end of the tunnel, because he understands the feeling of hopelessness and just sheer confusion of, and like misunderstanding, and just being completely lost in the void of like trying to understand like the game as a new bro. And that is honestly what gets a lot of people to kind of go away, because they just feel like they don't have the support, they don't have the understanding, all that stuff. So like CCP Rattati like understands, like he understands like what the new bros are feeling like as they're going through this. This is just his way of this is one of the many solutions that they probably come up with, and they finally decided on this. But you know, he understands what's going on. So just kind of putting that out there. So he understands like what new bros are feeling.
guided in the market. So
We'll actually go back here a little bit.
To train, to buy, to go study in the market, because you're fairly unguided in the market. So at least this is a starting point to say, okay, this actually works together, without community fittings and ghost fitting and that stuff. So that was the idea, and the idea obviously was passed through the CSM, and they gave us feedback on it. The main feedback was obviously like, don't go too far, like make it definitely new players. There shouldn't be an alliance doctrine that's being spun up, or fly a T2 battleship or Titan or supercarrier. So obviously the intent is here to have it low skill point investment, just to kind of get you started.
Oz, I paused it on a really awkward frame for Oz, because he's about to bring up some good points and his concerns about the expert systems thing. CCP's head is in the right place. They want to help out new bros. They want to find ways to help accelerate that. I think retroactively being able to add referral codes is a great way to kind of get that started. I mean, getting 1 million skill points. I mean, you can get into a lot of early ships and skills and weapons and all that stuff. Because I think some of these new bros don't even realize that happens, and so they don't have the skill points, and they don't even realize the whole refer friend thing exists. So that's why I feel like that's part of the reason why they're feeling behind, at least in my opinion. I could be off. They have numbers that I don't, which Oz Eve says here in a little bit. They ran this by the CSM, you know, which is great. I'm trying to think of another point, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. Let me cut back, and I'll be right back to you guys. All right, actually, I didn't have a point. We're going to jump back into it and hear what Oz has to say here.
My challenge to the expert systems, and actually I put a video on this out there, but you haven't seen it, so I'll try
brace
to
yourself.
Think about the expert system. So my challenge to that is,
it's not that bad.
If the introduction of the expert system kind of suggests that what is holding the retention rate back is people missing some skills on day 1 or day 2, right? It's that there isn't enough to do on day 1 or day 2 that they understand, and that is what's making them quit the game. And that is what I challenged, because I think that what's keeping people out of staying in the game, or what's kicking people out of the game, is not, you know, finding a corp, or not understanding the overview, or not, you know, not being able to play the game because it's not explained to them maybe in the way that most people understand, or only the most, you know, the most dedicated understand. And so to me, I didn't think that the expert systems are addressing the issue that's there. And obviously you have different numbers than I can look at, right? But to me, it sounds like it's addressing a problem that is not there. And then on top of that, if you put somebody in a mining barge, for example, it's to the day 1 player, it's not going to make a difference if it's a starter ship or a mining barge. Mining is going to be new to them, and the difference is not going to be how much IS they make. The only difference is they're going to get blown up quicker, and they might leave even quicker. That was what I don't understand. What do you say to that?
So it sounds like what Oz is saying, and I could be wrong in this kind of framing, is that new pros, they just don't understand the amount of things that they can do. Even though they're day one or day, within their first week or whatever, there's still a lot of different content they could do. They just don't realize it, or at least EVE Online doesn't do a very good job of presenting all the different styles of gameplay that they can do in the meantime while they're skilling up to that destroyer or that cruiser or whatever it is that they're trying to get into. It's kind of like I'm trying to remember the analogy. I think it was I did come up with something because I've watched this interview like 2 or 3 times in the meantime, and I did have some pretty good analogies for some of the responses that Oz had as well as Rattati. So we'll actually just go to what Rattati has to say here.
I think it's very anticlimactic to join a game and say, I want to fly the ship. I can't now, but you have to wait. I think it's fairly different from what players expect to come into a new game at this day and age. I think it's very specifically EVE, and it's one of the things that make EVE really unique and interesting, but it is hard to grasp to kind of have to wait because you can't grind XP by just doing the activity.
Rattati brings up a good point here, and I think this is why, in some ways, CCP or EVE Online needs to do a better job of setting the right expectations for new players when they join. I want to do a video here in the near future of me just reacting to CCP trailers that you see typically on like Facebook, YouTube, things like that. Basically promotional material they do to try and get new bros to join. And you see all these huge epic space battles and them flying around. I'm like, oh, I want to fly in that battleship and this and that. But when they get in the game, it slows down. There's numbers everywhere. There's grids. It's not as action packed as they thought it was. I think just setting the right expectation. This is kind of the sales side of me again. Setting the right expectation and letting them know, like, hey, like this game, it's a long-term game. It's a grind. It's very satisfying, but it's not something you're going to be able to jump into the biggest and baddest ships, right away. And that's just how the game has been designed. So I understand how EVE is kind of caught, or not EVE, but like CCP is kind of caught in this pickle of there's a huge demographic of people that want kind of that, I won't say like instant gratification, but there's a huge demographic of people that want to get in these ships and do it, but it just takes so long. But they also want to honor the players that have been there for a long time and not just throw at them free stuff. So I understand the dilemma that CCP is here in the middle. And, you could also ask the question is, are they trying to attract players that aren't going to stick around anyway? Because, I mean, you could do expert systems and all that kind of, you could front load them all this stuff that they can get instantaneously. But once that's over, then what? Are they then, when they actually have to start spending time to skill towards certain ships or weapons, then they're going to be like, oh, okay, well, this is actually how the game is. Now I'm over it anyway. I'm just going to leave. So, are they trying to attract the wrong players? Are they trying to do too many things as like a workaround around their system in order to attract these players and get them to stick around? Who knows? That's stuff I've just been kind of thinking off the top of my head as this is going on. So we'll go ahead and go back here and rewind 5 seconds.
Have to wait because you can't grind XP by just doing the activity.
That was the other thing too, is that the system is not set up in the sense where you can just grind for XP. Obviously, everything in EVE is literally time gated for the most part. If you want to make ISK, that's time gated. Especially when it comes to skills, things like that. And I have a whole thing about the economy versus other MMOs, but we'll go ahead and let him finish this point.
If you could, I think I'd be fine. But this kind of lack of progress or the sense of progression is a bit hard for new players. And this is very clear in our user testing, for example. So we have a lot of data, and definitely I don't disagree with all of the things you said. There are people who are lost because we don't explain the game well.
I think it's muted here.
You muted?
Definitely. Oh, sorry, I dropped here.
Yeah.
The overview is crowded and hard to understand, and that we definitely would like more players to join corporations day one, for sure. But not everyone is a corporation joiner. I'm not. Like, I would never join any corporation on day one, because a lot of people want to build their self-confidence, and we call it stage fright. You want to do things on your own until you're ready to kind of not be mocked for your lack of knowledge.
I was the same way. When I started playing EVE Online, I didn't want to join a corp right away, mainly because I just wanted to figure out stuff for myself. I didn't want to get too biased or too caught up with the mentality of the long-term veterans. Because, I mean, if you're a day one player, then you immediately jump into a corporation with a bunch of veterans that have been playing 10 or 15 years. They already start shaping your kind of mindset and your viewpoint about EVE, right? Instead of just experiencing it yourself, through your own lens and your own experiences. Now you jump in with these people that, you know, you join their corp, and now they're saying, okay, you have to fly these ships, you have to do this kind of content, you fly with us, you do this. Oh, they nerfed this again, like all this stuff. So like you really get kind of caught up, you know, with your pack or like your corp mates, and you really start thinking like them, right? So that's one of the reasons why I kind of wanted to do it on my own. But yeah, so like I agree with him here. Like this is why some players don't want to jump in right away. There's another point he made.
It is hard to grasp to kind of have to wait because you can't grind hard to understand, and that we definitely would like more players to join corporations day one for sure. But not everyone is a corporation joiner.
There's another point he made.
But it is hard to grasp to kind of have to wait.
Sorry if I'm jumping around here, but
grind XP by just doing the activity. If you could, I think I'd be fine. But this kind of lack of progress or the sense of progression is a bit hard for new players. And this is very clear in our user testing, for example. So we have a lot of data, and definitely I don't disagree with all of the things you said. There are people who are lost because we don't explain the game well.
Yeah, I'll go back to the point we were at earlier, but I mean, with the introduction, they started doing the activity tracker. Why not have some sort of hybrid system of, as you start leveling up the activity tracker, you are giving skill points specific to that kind of stuff, right? You start doing more mining. Now you start getting skill points that are specific towards mining related skills. So mining upgrades, mining lasers, just the actual mining skill, barges, whatever it is. So that way people, as they do more of that skill, they actually start working towards skill points. And if you already have, say, a certain skill maxed out for like mining, let's say you got SP specifically for like mining upgrades or something like that. You already have mining upgrades max. Now you just get the raw skill points and you can apply it to anything. I'm not sure, but I feel like there's some sort of system there that they could do with the activity tracker, especially when you're first starting off, that as you're doing certain things, so that way it's a hybrid system. You're learning just by using the implants or just straight up with time, just learning your skills. But also, hey, I'm learning I want to learn frigates 5, but at the same time, I want to do mining because I do want to level up my mining 2 a little bit at the same time. So now you're actually leveling two different skills kind of at the same time. One is passive, one is active. I definitely think there's some sort of system they could implement there.
Because a lot of people want to build their self-confidence, and we call it stage fright. You want to do things on your own until you're ready to kind of not be mocked for your lack of knowledge. So there's a big group of players who just simply don't want social interactions in the first stage or two. They just want to train, and they're fine with losing. Like it's fine. Like loss isn't the thing that drives people away. It's actually one of the things that make you kind of stick. Death in the first session of your first ship does not like lead to bad retention. It actually leads to the opposite. It's kind of like, okay, then you get it. Oh, okay, I die and I go back to station and I just buy another ship. Okay, I'm poor, but that's fine because I can just like get money somehow. That's crafting, and people are used to it in MMOs, World of Warcraft, or whatever.
It's a bit different in like World of Warcraft because I've actually seen it in rookie chat when people die in the game and they're like, oh, I respawn. They're like, oh, where does my ship respawn? And you're like, oh boy, now you're in for learning that you don't get your ship back, right? Who knows? Those numbers might be skewed because the majority of the people that stick around actually understand loss, and the people that leave don't understand. So it's kind of like it might be skewed in that sense. Who knows? Because that's what he means. He's like, the people that stick around understand loss, which makes sense. The people that leave don't, which is why they leave. So only kind of the small people that are okay with losing their ships and stuff reoccurringly and actually understand that ships are more of a tool than an actual, an attachment or like a asset you can get really tied up in. I don't know. Who knows? I'm not sure. Like, that's the thing. Like, these are the kind of numbers I would like to understand going forward. So that way we, as the community and players, can have a better snapshot of like, all right, what kind of information are you guys looking at? So that way we can give you some better solutions.
So I think that's not the problem. It's the problem of waiting. And to me, there's also this part of like dissatisfaction when you unlock the first ship and you think it's meaningful, but then you don't have any fittings and you don't know what to do next, and that lack of guidance. And I think that's what the expert system was in the beginning, was this kind of like skill plan. You just get the skill plan, it makes sense, it's kind of like a community fitting, but it's an object. And that was the basic kind of translation, the DNA of the design. And I think all of these will work together. That's my hope.
But aren't you worried that new players will log in and they will feel like it's required because you're offering it to them, and they feel like, oh, obviously I need to buy this because apparently I I don't have what it takes to have fun on day one, which is absolutely not true, because I think there's a ton of things you can do on day one that are a lot of fun and especially are better for your learning curve in the long run if you don't buy into it.
Yeah, but I just put that into players' judgment. I play Warzone. I don't buy the battle pass even if I'm killed by the Grau. Like, I don't need it. I can do whatever I want. And I think there are people who will enjoy this and people that won't. And I don't think, ultimately, I don't think it harms anyone that it exists in the way that it doesn't give you any power. It doesn't give you maybe perceived power. It doesn't give you any pay to win. It doesn't give you anything you couldn't before, because you could literally skill inject into this by plexing on day one if you wanted to.
I agree with Rattati here. Like, I don't see a huge issue with the like lending of skills. They don't want to give out skill injectors. They don't want to just sell skills, you know, or skill points, but they're more than happy to lend them. He's completely right here. I think the biggest concern that a lot of people in the community have is how effective will this be? And is this actually going to solve the issue of, you know, of the concerns that new players have? Like, will them spending $2, $3, $4, $5, $6, whatever it is for every week of this expert system, will that help them figure out how to fit their ships? Will that help them figure out why certain skills or certain systems react the way they do with ships and things like that? Will that actually work? I think that is kind of the bigger concern with the community, rather than the fact that it just costs money. And that's the other thing too, is just something I've learned about kind of advertising in businesses. Some business owners really favor the perception is more important than like if it's actually effective, right? So in this case, right now, the perception looks like that CCP is kind of doing this quick cash grab thing, which I don't think is the case at all. I think, obviously, try not to go on a tangent here. I'm trying not to like go off on a long tangent here. Not like trying to like diss CCP or anything like that, but just trying to like organize my thoughts for the most part. I probably should have done. I do have a bunch of stuff written down, but it's mostly for solutions and not like actually breaking down the interview portion. I'm trying to listen to some of the stuff you said.
Put that into players' judgment. I play Warzone.
Yeah, exactly. I've never played Warzone, but I'm kind of curious like how time gated Warzone is. It's a bit different than Eve, and Eve is a whole different animal when it comes to MMOs, and so it makes sense. I totally agree with him. Like if players want to spend money, they can. If something is a ripoff, they just won't spend money. That's just how it is. And if they're going to get their arms twisted by potentially corporations and like, hey, you join the corp, yeah, we need to get you into a barge. We need you to buy the expert system upgrades in order to get in there. Who knows? I mean, but that's always been the case. That it's either expert systems or it's been skill inject. Yeah, you need to skill inject yourself into our doctrine. If you can get on that, that'd be great. Like that's already happening. So I don't think this is going to be any different. I don't think this is going to bring up any new issues or concerns or anything like that with like as EVE Online is now. It's just like I'm more concerned is just how effective will this actually be, and will this actually help new bros as much as they think it will? So
I don't buy the battle pass even if I'm killed by the Grau. Like I don't think it doesn't give you any power. It doesn't give you maybe perceived power. It doesn't give you any pay to win. It doesn't give you anything you couldn't before, because you could literally skill inject into this by plexing on day one if you wanted to. So I think it's
Sure.
more like a guiding hand, if you will.
Okay. I'll let you off the hook with that one.
See, he already challenged him twice. He doesn't want to start interrogating the guy, and you can even see the huge smile on Rattati's face, even blushing a little bit. Because I mean, the whole point is like we all love this game. That's what it is at the end of the day. We all enjoy this game. We're all trying to come up with solutions for the same problems, but they're just different. You know, I live here in the U.S. Like not even remotely trying to get political or whatever, but even just the two different parties here, it's like they're very different. We don't have to agree on everything, but it's like we're both trying to come up with solutions with the same problems. They just happen to be different. So we just need to find a way to kind of find a middle ground and try and make this work. So it's nice to see a little bit of smile here.
I have to ask a question that at least Mike.
All right, and I do want to actually go over some of the solutions I have about the expert systems, things like that, because I really think, in my opinion, in this instance, CCP is focusing a little bit too much on the symptom and not the cause, right? Or the disease itself. But before we get into that, I will bring that up. I'll bring it towards the end of the video. But he did bring up a good point here where they're actually talking about login rewards. And Ozzy was talking about the Needlejack stuff, but this is kind of like the main point they wanted to get into.
The way the login rewards are structured, while we're on that topic, the way they're structured right now, I don't think the community is happy about them, because speaking from myself and the people that I know, it's 99% trash. So you have a big pile of blueprints in your hangar that you're never going to use.
I have that.
I obviously we were in a tough place with the DLI, the veteran DLI for sure. What it has value that can't be traded, but still has value. Like it's very hard to navigate that. The concept of soulbound, hard, doesn't really exist. That means that I can't give, or we can't give anything really useful, very interesting, because it just gets converted into cash immediately. So yes, it is there's a debate for sure about the value of the veteran DLI and whether it actually is a net positive or a net negative thing. There are ways to improve the player experience, just like the redemption queue, handling, like, I don't know, easy sell. I actually don't know, but there is a debate at the moment about the future of the veteran DLI for sure. And you can spin up a thread about that as well if you want.
Okay. Yeah, I mean the way that it's done and the improvements and that you can redeem them now to the home station, that's all fantastic. It's just you got to put some stuff in there that people will actually, because the way it is right now, I think most people would rather not have a login reward than another Vexor blueprint. I think because it's just filling up. Nobody's going to build that Vexor. Like, I hate to break it to you, but nobody's building the Vexor.
It's a very hard. It's almost impossible to make it actually valuable. So maybe we need to rethink this in some way.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a difficult point. Trying to make things that are valuable enough to warrant people to log in and make it worthwhile, but at the same time not too valuable or marketable where it's just going to instantly be put on the market. Now it's going to start messing with things in the economy. So yeah, it's a very tough spot to kind of figure things out. And like I totally get it. Like you can say you can sense the frustration in Rattati's voice, and he's like, I know this is an issue. We're trying to find a solution, but it's very difficult. In this instance, and so these are things that they want to do. So I don't know if it's an issue of the frequency where you feel obligated that you have to log in every day to be able to get the maximum SP, because at the end of each month you get 150,000 SP. I'm not sure if that's that on top of also not getting a reward that's very I guess rewarding. That's kind of rubbing salt in the wound. So I'm not sure if they want to make a system where maybe you only have to log in 10, maybe 15 times every month. Whether you do it in the first 10 days of the month or 15, whether you kind of spread it out every other day, maybe you can't play EVE Online every single day, maybe you're going on vacation. I think that would kind of make it a bit easier to be able to utilize the login rewards, especially people that are doing like SP farms or just want to be able to touch each of their accounts not every single day, and having to log into every single one, I would assume would be pretty annoying. Just some ideas off the top of my head for like login rewards. I know some people were talking about ESS keys. I know that's kind of coming up around the corner. That's something they kind of talked about in their interview. I think some sort of, I'm not sure if they've ever experimented with any kind of like temporary skill implant. So being able to basically, because I think some people like the drugs, some people don't. I guess especially if like you're an Abyss runner, some of the drugs could actually be very helpful, especially if they increase something like shield repping or extra damage or something like that. But I would imagine if you had something that gave you like a 24 or 48 hour skill implant, like a +3 to turret damage, or I guess you could do like the 2% versions because you don't want to mess with that too much. But like a 2% increased damage to turrets, basically same thing as like the drugs, but they're actually implants, the skill implants, the 6 through 10 or whatever. So it might be something that's not good on your main, but maybe you have an alt that needs that extra 2% mining yield or the 2% extra shield buffer, whatever it is. And like those are things you can still redeem, and it actually lasts longer than 30 minutes or 15 minutes, however long the drugs last for. So that's something they could utilize, and it's not marketable because it's the same thing that once you redeem it in the thing, it just automatically gets implanted into your head. And if you try to do it, it'll just give you an error like, hey, there's already something there. You can't implant it, or you have to actually remove the implant to have that work. So that's one idea. Another one I had was kind of like redeeming a voucher that you could kind of submit to a certain faction to kind of help increase standings just by a very, very small amount. So that way you don't feel like you always have to incessantly grind standings for a certain type of thing. Maybe if you just collect them over the course of 5, 6, 7 months, you can actually get to the point where you're at like 1.0 standing after the course of like 6 months, some sort of voucher. But then again, is that something you can contract? And then once you redeem it, how would you be able to apply it to different factions and pirate factions, that kind of stuff? So just throwing ideas out there. I think these are some of the things that could be worthwhile, and maybe just reducing the amount of daily login rewards required, or say daily, I understand it's daily logins, but at the same time, I think having to log in 30 times a day or 30 times a month in order to like fully redeem, because most people just do it strictly just for the SP, right? That's not, I would assume 99% of the reason why most people do it. So I think adding some really utilizing some of the temporary stuff, and also including the expert skills, I know, or so the expert systems, that's something they talked about before, adding that as login rewards too as well. So curious to see how all that stuff kind of pans out. So those are just some ideas I had about daily login rewards. All right, the video is already getting super long, so I want to dive into my solutions when it comes to the expert systems, as you guys can see here. And I will probably be making a part 2 video, because honestly, CCP Rattati brings up some good points about how can we get new bros basically introduced into industry, because right now they're trying to compete with these huge supply chains and very like hyper efficient, streamlined industries that exist out in like no-sec, low-sec, things like that. And it's super hard for a new bro basically, hey, if I want to fit a rifter with guns and ammo, like that is a huge undertaking for a new player. So that's something I probably talk about in another video. I might even have my own dedicated video, because he did kind of mention some things about Orca and roar call changes that aren't going to be happening this quarter, but maybe Q2, who knows. But in this instance, I really want to focus on just the expert system things, because I think there's a lot of underlying reasons why new bros feel the way that they do. Because when new bros are exiting the game, I don't think they really understand what they needed to see in order for them to stick around. It's kind of like, for me, like I used to be this way when I was a little kid. I would go in the kitchen when I was little. All the cupboards are closed. I wouldn't see any kind of food. I'd look in the fridge like once or whatever, and I'd be like, I'm starving. There's no food to eat. Like, Mom, can we just go to McDonald's real quick down the street? Like, I want to be able to fly my cruiser. I want to fly my battleship. Like, I want to go to McDonald's. And my mom would tell me, she's like, no, like, there's plenty of food here. And she started opening the cupboards. Like, there's tons of stuff to do already. There's tons of stuff to eat right here. Like, you don't need that right now. You just haven't seen all the options and all the availability that's around you right now. And I think that's an analogy I came up with, and I think it's a pretty good analogy, because a lot of the new bros, they're so new to the game, and they're still even confused when they're quitting. I don't think they're able to give, I'm not saying they're dumb, I'm just saying I don't think they fully grasp the type of sandbox or the type of opportunities they have in order to give the type of feedback they want. I'm really curious to see what the exit surveys look like and how they're actually worded when people are leaving the game, because there's a big difference between, oh, everything is taking too long, and like, oh, I just didn't know where to go or what to do, or I felt like I didn't have enough guidance when it comes to what to do next. Because those are the questions I see all the time when it comes to new bros. Hey, I finished the career agents. What do I do now? How do I find the proof of discovery? How do I mine titanium? Which you don't. I mean, they're just reading the quest wrong. You know, the sensor overlay. How do I activate my sensor overlay? Like, there's just so many hurdles and things against new players when they're trying to learn the game that are just, in our head, it's just simple fixes. But for CCP, who knows? It could be a huge undertaking. So that's why we need to have this open line of communication with the developers when it comes to these kind of things. So that might warrant its own kind of video, some of the solutions I think they could do for the new player experience. This definitely seems like, I think they have the right idea. It might be more of a band-aid than actually kind of treating the cause. They're just trying to treat the symptom. Who knows? But we'll go ahead and jump into the expert system stuff. So first things first, in my opinion, I think there's way too many of these. And I understand this is to the test server. Who knows if this is what it's finally going to look like. But I think literally having high-sec exploration expert systems for each and every faction is just too much, especially when I was actually looking at some of the skills. Like here's the Amar high-sec and here's the Minmatar one. Like the skills are literally identical. I think literally the only difference is that this has Amar frigates 3 and this has Minmatar frigates 3. And I think there are some very, very subtle changes, but I think the fact that what they need to do is just combine it. If you buy the high-sec exploration expert system, you get, frigates 3 for all the factions. You can fly whatever exploration ship you want. Because I can almost guarantee it, someone is going to be in a Minmatar ship or a Minmatar faction. They're going to accidentally buy the Amar high-sec exploration system, and they're going to have the skills to fly that one, but they're like, well, I bought the Amar one, and it's just going to be confusing. Like, just give them frigates 3 across the board, because what if they don't like the Minmatar one? What if they don't like the Amar one? What if they wanted to try the Caldari one? Like, now they have to skill that up, And it doesn't take long. All they need to do is get to frigates 3, but instead of forcing them to have to skill up these other factions, just give them frigates 3 across the board. I don't think it's that big of a deal. So just make a singular high-sec exploration package. And that way, they're kind of experimenting between the different exploration ships. Which one do you like the most? Another thing I noticed, so I have some notes here on the left side. the mining barge. I really think the mining barge needs more upgrades as is. So first off, advanced drone avionics. It's kind of funny. I think they just I know this is like the test server. I think they just overlooked it. So you need drones 5 in order to have advanced drone avionics, which honestly it's not needed. Like you don't need drone range to mine. 99.9% of the time you're mining, and then when rats show up to attack you, you just kill them with your drones. Like the range doesn't make that big of a difference. But they're only giving you drones 3. So how do you have a drone 5? A skill that requires drone 5, but you only have drones 3. So I think that's just a small overlook. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But I think it would be cool just give them drones 5. I don't think it's going to confuse the players. I think if anything, it's going to help them realize like, hey, you're flying a barge. They can hold 5 light drones, which is kind of another funny thing. They don't give you light drones on here. So you have drones 5, but you're not able to fly any drones. And as a new bro, they just don't know, that they need to purchase light drones. I've seen people do that all the time. Like, well, I have drones 3. Why can't I use drones? It's like, oh, well, you need to level up light drones in order to use light drones. And they just don't know. So I think adding light drones in here is also important. I think just give them drones 5. Like, just give them drones 5 so they can use 5 drones. All of the barges can use 5 light drones. Just let them use it instead of just giving them 3. Let them actually like optimize the ship. Another thing too is give them mining upgrades 4, because already like fits on barges, and especially since they do have another point I'm going to bring up here in a little bit. The fits are already really tight, and it's a small increase, but just giving them mining upgrades 4 is just going to allow them more room to be able to fit the ships a bit differently the way they want. Same thing with, I was really surprised. I understand mining barges are typically shield fit, or they are shield fit, but I was really surprised not to see hull and mechanic upgrades on here. Like, I guess you would just completely dump your armor and your structure skills when you get into a mining barge. I mean, that's also really important too, right? Especially if you're using something like a damage control unit to really help tank out your procurer, and that's typically where you have the most resistances, right? So I definitely think giving them hull and mechanics 4 is pretty important. Another thing that I was going to bring up was that the core ship operation systems, which is basically just the Magic 14. What I've noticed is all of the exploration skills, as well as the mining barge skills, gives you 12 of the 14 core operation skills. There are some subtle differences, like this one might give you only capacitor management 3, but this gives you capacitor management 4. Same thing here, CPU management 4, but this gives you 5. But it kind of brings up the question, it's like, why even bother with the core ship operation expert system when I could just buy mining barge or buy the high sec exploration package and basically get 12 of the 14 of these. Is it going to be maxed out? No, but at least I'm going to have access to different ships and skills. So I'm not sure if they need to add more to the core operation expert system, maybe add some navigation skills, because I understand they want to. I know the Magic 14 is just a community made thing that they put together. It's not even put together by CCP or anything like that. It's just a community. It's just agreed upon by the community saying, hey, these are skills that affect all ships. But like, so does Afterburner, so does micro warp drives. 95% of the ships in the game use some sort of prop mod, right? For the most part, especially as a new bro. So I don't know if they want to add those skills on there as well, like Afterburner and some of these other ones. I did actually have an idea of actually allowing players to get into ships faster, because none of these are actually letting players, and I'm sure this is just very surface level, actually getting into ships that they want sooner, right? So what I was thinking was, get them in the ship tree, is maybe you just combine the whole like core ship skill thing and just call it core combat ship operations, and you can break them down by faction. So, hey, here's the core combat ship operations for Caldari. Here's Galente. Here's this and that. And so essentially for like Caldari, so if we pull up Caldari here, if you basically give them light drones and rockets and missiles, and as well as some like hybrid turrets and stuff, they're going to be able to fly pretty much any of these ships. And so what I had the idea of was allow, if they'd made this specific Caldari, combat ship operations, basically you would get cruiser 3. So you basically frigate 3, destroyer 3, cruiser 3. So you can use all 3 of these types of ships. You give them light drones 3. You give them drones 5. You give them light, heavy, and hand missiles 3. So they should, like, if a new bro's playing this, and if they see that, oh, a Caracol can use light missiles, heavy missiles, or assault missiles, they should have access to it when they do it, even though it's 3. And I know what I'm kind of presenting here because I want to give them like hand missiles, rockets, small hybrid turrets, medium hybrid turrets, and give them level 3 skills for all of like the support like missile skills and stuff. I know that sounds like a lot, but from the numbers I've counted, the mining barge, like there's 29 skills in the mining barge system, like for the system upgrade. Like I counted down on this, like there's 29 skills that get kind of upgraded or adjusted. But if we did something like this, it would probably be closer to like 30. So it would only be like literally one more than the like the barge system upgrade. But like you're getting access to way more ships. You're getting access to ships and weapons as well as like the core skills. And that's kind of why, in my opinion, when it comes to like the Magic 14, that should just be those are just be skills that are just given to new bros. Because at what point are we actually like making conscious decisions and customizing our ship, or are we just leveling up skills that are just heavily time gated just to be able to pull off some sort of mediocre fit, right? It's stuff that you need, and it even just shows here, like if you want to fit an exploration ship, you need 12 of the 14 Magic 14. If you want to fit up a barge, you need 12 of the 14 Magic 14. Like it's there in the writing. Like if you want to fit any kind of ship above mediocre, you need the Magic 14 to do it, and eventually you do want to have most of those skills at least 4 out of 5 or like 5 out of 5 maxed out. So that's kind of my thing, and just have them change, just give them the skills required to fly these ships. Maybe not remote capacitor transmitter and not like ECM and that kind of stuff. So same thing with like Minmatar. You give them all the exact same skills, like light drones 3, missiles 3, because whether they want to fly a breacher, whether they want to fly a slasher, so small projectile weapons, things like that. Same thing with Amar. Give them access to rockets, turrets, missiles, even capacitor turrets. So, and who cares if some of the factions you get slightly more skills for certain factions? Like that's just how it's set up. Like Amar ships are crazy because you literally have to learn like, projectiles, missiles, and rockets, as well as some other crazy skills. So you pretty much have to learn like shields and armor and all these like different things. That's just how Minmatar is. So those are just some of the solutions I have, some of the ideas I have when it comes to the. All right, one last little video edit I forgot to mention here in the video, which is if CCP does follow through with this kind of core combat like ship operations thing for say like Amar or something like that, I think players should actually have the capability of being able to rotate those skills to a different thing. So whether they have the expert systems organized by exploration, mining, and combat. Let's say you bought the Amar one and you bought, the full week, but after 2 days, you're just not a big fan of using the Amar ships or like the Amar weapons. You only have to wait 24 hours or next downtime to be able to switch it to then the Minmatar ships. If you don't like that, you can wait another, whether it's a 24-hour or 48-hour wait. You're actually able to rotate between the different ships, so that way some players can actually experience all 4 of the factions in 1 week if they want to. Or if they want to spend longer than a week trying different ones, they have that capability. Instead of having to buy an Amar one, buy a Minmatar one, buy a Caldari one, they could just make one purchase and try all the combat ships on a 24-hour rotation if they wish to maintain it. Or if they want to change it, they would have to wait till the next day. So I think something like that would be more cost effective and allow players to try out way more ships and way more weapon styles if they want to do it that way. The expert systems, I could have built this out a bit more, but I really want to keep it surface level because this video is already getting extremely long. And I really want to thank you guys that have stuck it out to this point. I really want to be the type of person that comes up with solutions and not just constantly complaining about the current state of the game, because honestly, that's just not going to get us anywhere. And what we need to do is be understanding and really try and open line of communication with the developers, because you'll see later in the interview, you can tell like CCP Rattati just said, he's like, I miss the old days of being able to post stuff online, getting feedback from the community, make some adjustments and tweaks to some potential updates they're making in the near future, and getting feedback and keeping it very civil. But it just seems like that's just not the case, which is why CCP, other game developers in general, have just kind of shied away of asking the players, because they just can't be civil about it. There just can't be an open discussion. And at the very end of the interview, CCP Rattati gives us some good information on how to give constructive feedback if you guys do have feedback for CCP or EVE Online in general. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will be doing a part 2 about some other topics as well. I love doing these like long-term like long-winded discussion videos talking about stuff. But if you guys have any questions or anything like that, put that down in the comments below. And I really urge you guys, if you guys do have a comment, I'll let you guys vent a little bit, but if you guys do want to talk about something, like, please bring up a solution. Talk about how we can get new bros involved in industry. Bring up how can we make expert systems, how can we make it work? What can we do with some of the systems to make it actually worthwhile for new bros? What are some solutions that we can kind of come up with? I'm trying to remember the other topic about the daily login rewards. Like, what can we kind of come up with together as a community to make it easier for these developers? Because they're asking us for help. Like, they want the game to work, and they're asking for our feedback. So anyway, that is the longest outro I've ever done. Hope you guys take care, and you guys fly safe.